Just realized last night that over the course of the last month and a half, 2 months, I've actually accumulated roughly 30 more albums in the soul, funk, and R&B subgenre, jazz included in that. And I decided to present them all in one fell swoop. And these albums all date from 1967 up through 1986. That's almost a 20-year span. And here they are. We're going to start out with a big one. My father had this particular album on CD when I was growing up. And it's just a fantastic Peter Max kind of cover. The Bar-Kays, Soulfinger. This is the edition of the Bar-Kays that sadly passed away in the same plane crash that killed Otis Redding, and that's pretty common knowledge, actually. This is a fantastic album of instrumental soul. Soulfinger, of course, being the famous one of these. The whole album is excellent, but there's one issue I had, and I've confirmed my turntable actually works well at playing a lot of other things. Songs 3, 4, and 5, and I think one on side 2, all sound like they were recorded into a can, 20 feet away from the microphone. I don't know if this is because of the recording quality or because of an error in vinyl manufacturing. If any of you out there know who are big 60s soul fans, please let me know. I'm going to show you the label on this because I don't think I've actually showed you the classic Vault Records label. This is before Stax got, pulled into Atlantic, folks. This has been reissued on Atlantic, but this is the original Vault Records print from 19... Actually, I'm sorry, this says 65 on it, but I could have sworn this album was from 1967. Yep, it says 67, but it says 65 on the bottom. You see? 1965, 67. Interesting. Dionne Warwick. Dionne from 1972. If I understand it, this is her last album with Burt Bacharach and Hal David on Warner Brothers. I don't think I need to show you the early 70s Warner Brothers label, but that's her final album with the Bacharach-David team. Of her classic run, that is. Aretha Franklin, Hey Now Hey, The Other Side of the Sky. This is the album that she did with Quincy Jones. She had some problems, according to her autobiography, with this element of the gatefold, using a hypodermic needle, but I love the imagery. This Afro matador, literally involved in a bullfight with drugs. I love the great Afrocentric imagery. The hit off of this album was Angel. I'm not sure, but I think that character right there is meant to represent Quincy Jones, just by the look of the hair and the eyes. Can't tell, but does look a lot like him, the eyes and the hair. You've all seen the 70s Atlantic label. Don't need to show you that. Lamont Dozier, part of the Holland Dozier Holland team that wrote songs with the Supremes and the Four Tops at Motown. This is his first solo album on ABC Records, 1973. There's Lamont, seemingly, all about the bod there. Al Wilson, La La Peace Song. This is from 1974. It's on a label I don't think I've ever shown you before. Rocky Road Records. It's bright orange. This is an album, I had the opportunity to get it on CD a couple of years ago, but I decided not to since the CD was a really overpriced import. It's a good album from the Isaac Hayes movement, but the title track is really what lured me into it. You can actually see the record label on the back, so I don't actually have to show it to you. Another case of I love toys that don't need batteries. Hamilton Bohannon on Dakar Records. I was amazed to find this. I don't care how much ringware or how much tape they try to put on it. It's in really good condition. I just got this last weekend. There's the Dakar label. I know you haven't seen that. Hamilton Bohannon was a pioneering disco drummer. He's even referenced in the Tom Tom Club's hit Genius of Love. Bohannon, you know. And you've seen him before in one of my videos with his album Summer Groove and with Let's Start the Dance. But finding a Bohannon album from the mid-70s, just amazing to me. Disco Baby, Van McCoy and the Soul City Orchestra. You're going to see a little bit of them later. I got this album because this is the one that had the hustle on it. Didn't actually have that song. There's the Avco label. The OJ's, Survival. Another album I've been looking for a long time. The cover's a little scary at first, but really epitomizes how people might have felt when this came out in 1975. The Van McCoy album you just saw was in 1975 too. There's the OJ's at the time. The PIR label, you've already seen that probably. The real Van McCoy, a 1975 album released in 1976. This is on a somewhat different record label. H&L Records. He does the theme from Star Trek on there. The Emotions, Flowers from 1976. My friend Henry has a video of the dancers on Soul Train doing this, you know, and he always talks about it making him want to dance. And the song they were doing was I Don't Want to Lose Your Love. Great album, produced by Maurice White, Columbia label. Joe Simon, Today. I didn't have any Joe Simons, that's the reason why I got this. It's on the Polydor Spring label. So Spring on it. 1976. Now, you know, I swore I had this album on vinyl. I missed numerous opportunities to get it on CD, which I now regret. The self-titled Chic debut. You know, when I didn't know anything about Nile Rodgers or Bernard Edwards, and I just heard the female singers, I thought these two models were chic. You know, that's what I thought they were when I was really young. This is some Atlantic Records. It has, you know, Dance, 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 Everybody Dance, Strike Up a Band, which you can get on their greatest hits. But it also has San Palau. Great instrumental. In fact, the person who had this album wanted to emphasize strongly that it is an instrumental. Lynette McKee, Words and Music. She'd starred in Sparkle. She would soon star in Around Midnight with Dexter Gordon. This album for $1. It's rather uncommon to find it. A little water damage on the Warner Brothers label, but from 1978. Sea Level, On the Edge. Sea Level were a southern rock group that are rather common to find around here. Southern rock group sometimes, but I first heard them on a compilation called Move to the Groove that belonged to my dad. It was the best of 70s jazz funk. And this band included Joe English, who was the drummer for Wings during the period of Venus and Mars and Wings at the Speed of Sound, and he went to join this band. I believe this is their second album, and while a lot of their later albums have a more of a rock direction, this one is all jazz funk fusion, every single song. There's the inner label. There's the Capricorn Records inner sleeve, rather. The song in question on this album was 54, that I heard on that Move to the Groove compilation. Foxy, Get Off. This is a disco funk group that was very Latino based, and of course Get Off was their best known hit. But the song I really love on this album was the kind of big band send-up of Tina's Song, which begins the album. Had it on a 12-inch single. My mother had it years ago. It's on the Dash label from 1978. Montana. I don't know anything about this artist. It says right here, Vincent Montana Jr., produced by Gamble and Huff in Philadelphia. I Love Music was an OJ song, and the cover just attracted me. From what I understand, it'll probably go really good along with Chic. Another Emotions, Sunbeam. Pretty much got a good collection of Emotion stuff that I have. There's a picture of the group as a child, the Hutchinson Sunbeams, on Columbia Records, produced by Maurice White. I've actually had this album on vinyl twice. The first copy was warped beyond the point of playing, but this is LTD's 1979 album, Devotion, on the A&M label. This one is not warped. It's 1979. Corey and Me. Corey Day. She was the lead singer of Dr. Buzzard's Savannah Band. New York International Records. As you can see, the art on the cover is very similar to Dr. Buzzard's. The next album you're going to see on the list is Supercharged by the Tavares. Recorded in 1979, released in 1980 on the EMI label. Don't need to show you that since you've already probably seen it. Gary Bartz. One of my favorite jazz funk sax albums from 1980. Really glad I finally found this. It's on the Arista label. You all know what the Arista label looks like, so I'm not going to bother taking that out. The Dramatics 10½. Another album from 1980. This is an MCA Records. And there's actually a little lyric sheet in there. The Writers. I was attracted to this album, again, based on the kind of unique cover, but I had no idea what the album's contents were really going to be. But when I looked at the back of the album, I instantly knew who this was. Ralph McDonald, Hugh McCracken, Anthony Jackson. This was an album made by some of the great session people of the day. And it's a great disco funk album on Columbia. And check it out if you can find it. The Shy-Lights, featuring Eugene Record, Heavenly Body, again 1980, on the 20th Century Fox label. Let me see if I can show you that. There's the 20th Century Fox label. Shy Sound Records. A Taste of Honey, Ladies of the 80s, 1982. I really love this group. Every album I hear by them, I'm really happy with it. It's just a regular Capitol flavor label. Lou Rawls, When the Night Comes. This is actually, well, they listed it as a country pop album, but to me it's more of a soul pop record, I guess, you know. But the thing is, a country flavored soul, you know, not necessarily country western, you know, but kind of rural country sounding, I guess. My friend Henry taught me that differentiation between country and country western, so very happy about that one. You know, helps me understand music better. There's a historical element to this album that I can't really confirm in any serious way, but it was listed on a site I use called Rate Your Music, that America's first African-American astronaut, Guion Bluford, actually bought this onto the space shuttle with him in the 80s, and it was the first album played in outer space. This is on the Epic label. Standard Epic label you'll find on any Jackson's record or anything like that. East Coast Offering. This picture of a cartoon New York, I didn't know anything about what this album would be, but basically, much like The Writers, it's another album of jazz session people. I don't really know all the personnel on this album. It's an MCA Records. Nothing unusual about the label. If you watched my last video about the Bee Gees, I bought a copy of their ESP record on vinyl and it was warped. And I took it back to exchange for something at the same price. And this is what I got. Confunction's 1985 album, Electric Lady. On the Mercury label, but you all know what the 80s Mercury label looks like. I always loved Confunction. Sun City, Artists Against Apartheid. This album, like a lot of these, I actually found this weekend at the Rockland Antique Barn. This past weekend. This is a huge collaborative project. People like Africa Bambaataa, Pat Benatar, Jimmy Cliff, Bob Dylan, Peter Gabriel, Herbie Hancock, Daryl Hall, Jackson Brown, Run DMC, David Ruffin, Gil Scott-Heron, and of course Miles Davis, all appeared on this album. It was around the time of We Are the World, although this was a bit more of an overt project in terms of intent. It's on the Manhattan Records label. So, anyway, that's what I have for my funk, soul, / R&B / jazz funk albums from the last couple of months. Getting to the point here where I actually have most of the vinyl I've been looking for. This particularly has been the case with these albums. These are all ones I was really looking in a big way for. So, until next time, enjoy your music. Peace.